So, John, when I was a kid, we had McGruff, the crime dog. What ever happened to him?
Well, McGruff was a staple of our youth. He kind of came out throughout the years. And oh,
There he is.
hey, McGruff. He retired, but we still found employment around here, and he kind of just hangs out and keeps me company most days.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We know that your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending it with us.
This show is talking about beyond the blueprint and what happens kind of behind the scenes of the construction world, and also what happens in our lives from a family business and ranching and all the things that keep us building and moving forward.
And if there's something that you heard that resonates with you, whether it was a joke, an idea, please like this, share it with someone you know, and feel free to leave comments. We look forward to seeing what you have to say.
Let's dig in.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us today on the Two Bs in a Podcast. I'm Brad Jans with my brother Brian Jans, and we're joined today by Chief Jon Thum of the Sioux Falls Police Department. John, happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
John, we really appreciate taking the time. And do we call you Chief? Do you go by Chief?
Call me whatever you want.
I'll go by Chief. I
Yeah,
like
there
that.
you go. Yeah.
It actually works.
Yep.
So we want to get to know you a little bit more.
Sure.
We want to learn about Sioux Falls and kind of some of the challenges that you've seen in the last decade or two as growth has happened, and it kind of seems exponentially. And just talk a little how construction kind of correlates into some of
For sure.
Designs of things. But you want to just start off, tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into law enforcement?
Yeah, that's a long story, so I'm going to keep it somewhat condensed. But growing up, always wanted to be in either law enforcement or military. As a 5-year-old, every kid wants to be a cop or wants to be a soldier. Well, that never wore off for me. My grandpa was a Korean War vet. My other grandpa was in World War II. My dad was in Naval Reserve for 25 years. So there's always this idea of service. And then as I grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in Pettigrew Heights, 16th and Duluth was my home corner. We'd see cops pretty regularly, and I'm like, hey, what a cool job that would be to be in my own town doing this, and worked my way through. And then in church, we'd take these spiritual gift inventories, and it always came back with service being related, right? Always service related. Mm-hmm. So I kind of had set my sight on this, either police or military. Got to the point where graduated from Lincoln High School in '98. Was going to go to college because my dad was the campus pastor at USF. So I got 90% off my tuition. Made that choice pretty easy.
Right.
Plus the football team there was pretty good, and I had this idea that I was going to be successful at that too. So that's where I went to University of Sioux Falls. But without getting into my college career, I ended up picking a business major because there wasn't a criminal justice major, which I'm thankful for. It was a big business marketing major.
Sure.
And I graduate there, I think 03-ish, and get out into the job market. And I'm not pursuing law enforcement at this point because I know I'm about to get married within a year. There's a certain stability you don't get in law enforcement that you get, working a sales job. It's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. It's predictable. I'm like, I kind of owe this my best effort. Well, I was, again, business marketing. I applied at every ad agency in town. It's a different job market then. Got 0 callbacks. For my resume without any internship other than cutting meat at Hy-Vee wasn't exactly making the marketing people excited. And so I ended up taking the sales job, though, and I'm like, I forced myself, no matter what, you will do it for 2 years. Everything you do deserves your best effort. It's kind of how I didn't handle my football career, and deserves your best effort in a time that's reasonable. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, you're going to do it for 2 years no matter what. Started the job. Boss was fine. Sales were above previous sales numbers. Hated every single minute of that job. Sometimes I'd wake up in the morning and I'd throw up, and then I'd go to work. Not because I was treated poorly. I was treated great. It was a fine job, but there was a sense that I wasn't doing what I was called to do, which is something service related. So my wife and I had a conversation. She encouraged me to go for law enforcement. She was working, had a mass comm degree, was working at Kello. She went back to hair school, which is what she wanted to do. We both kind of diverged our paths, and we each found our fit. And as soon as I got within law enforcement, I knew this is where I was meant to be. And now, crazy thing, 20 years later, to see what the career's been and what I've experienced, absolutely was the right choice, exactly where my calling was, and I'm happy to be here.
That's awesome. You're doing a fantastic job, by the way.
Well, thanks. Just, again, it's not getting any easier, I kind of joke, too.
Well, and you had big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Chief Barthel was great, too.
Yep. And so I had Burns was right before me, and then Barthel. before him. And Barthel was a chief for 12 years. I'm not sure how he did it, maybe even longer. And then Burns, good 6-7 years. And now, here I am, and I'm closing in on year 5 here. And then it's going fast and slow all at the same time. Like a lot of things our age, when we get to be our age, or where'd the time go? But again, it's I feel a special connection because this is my hometown.
Yeah.
This is where I'm from. And so it helps with the work.
Right.
Well, to your point, one of my favorite shows as a kid was Chips. Man, I wanted to be Ponch so bad.
I mean, what would be better?
I know. But then I found out maybe 2 years into the show, sometimes cops get shot. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it may be always glamorous.
Right.
But, I had delusions that I was going to ride a police motorcycle at one point. And then I went out and watched the training. I'm like, those are delusions. Those guys are really good at operating those motorcycles. And that would be the most dangerous thing I would do in my career, I think, is get on that motorcycle. So, yeah.
Well, John, what's something that you could share that people might not expect about you?
Oh, about me? Yeah, well, there's a couple things. I have to throw this into all public speaking appearances.
Yep.
I have an identical twin brother. He looks like me. He talks like me. He acts like me. He's a little taller, a little skinnier, a little smarter. but he's an anesthesiologist in town.
Okay.
And this never recently has become an issue since I became chief. People started kind of knowing who I was because they'd see me, that guy on the news is what they'd say. Well, then the blowback kind of goes over his direction. And he gets misidentified as the chief pretty regularly. We were at an Augie hockey game a couple weeks ago, and during the intermission, we were there together. We both went separate ways, and he was identified as chief 4 times. And he comes back, he's like, sorry. He's like, I probably just snubbed somebody we kind of go that. But it's produced some funny situations because some of our officers have gone in for either have their baby or get a colonoscopy, and of course the anesthesiologist comes in, and their boss comes in to put them to sleep, And then on the flip side, my wife is of Hispanic Italian descent. His wife is of Norwegian Irish descent. So it has produced some interesting rumors that circulated about what exactly I was doing. So again, it just kind of has become this disclaimer. So I have an identical twin brother, and my little brother is a doctor too. And so there's this medical community, and then there's me. I think people used to say, well, what happened to you? I'm like, a lot of head injuries, a lot of concussions, But then when I became chief, of course, my brother's partners started saying, well, one brother's a surgeon, brother's a chief. You're just an anesthesiologist. That make you like the Cooper Manning of the Manning brother equation. Yeah, it's kind of funny. But no, that's the fact about me. The other thing is my favorite hobby is snowboarding. I think people have this idea that as a cop, I couldn't like snowboarding.
Yeah.
But it's my favorite thing. If I could do, I just love that stuff. Yeah. You can see by the snurfer in the background. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah.
So you talked about your progression into law enforcement. Do you remember your first day on the job and what that was like?
I was really, really nervous, right? Because you get all this training, and here's the thing about police work is that you can train in-house as much as you want. You can even do reality-based training and try to simulate what the real world is. And here's kind of the difference, too, with fire. Fire is a science. Fire is a predictable element that behaves in certain ways. People are anything but predictable. Right, so you're getting ready to go out, and I remember just getting my uniform on at home and staring at the wall for about 2 hours, just super stressed out before I went in, about, am I equipped to this? Can I handle it? But knowing I needed to give it my best effort and go in there. And then went there, and the first call ended up going on was actually a murder. And really? I spent the whole night running a crime scene log, right? So this really high-profile crime, and here I am with a sheet of paper running the crime scene log, right? But it was kind of interesting, too, because you just started to see the inner workings of the agencies. And then also, ultimately, too, I always tell people is, you become a cop and you think you know what's happening in your community. And this is back in 2006, right, when I finally got on the street. I grew up in, Pettigrew Heights. I had no idea what was happening in the world around me. People had this idea that Sioux Falls was sleepy and quiet and nothing was happening. Well, we just knew less, right, because there wasn't this constant media source and media stream. We were busy from when I got hired, and it opened my eyes to my community in a whole new way.
Sure. So to that point, Sioux Falls is growing, it's changing. Yep. What do you see from your seat for some of those changes?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception, right, that we add 5,000 to 6,000 people a year and they're all bad. It's not the case at all, right? And again, if you look at the numbers, right, because the numbers do matter, right? And we look at per capita because we can add over 5 years 25 to 30,000 people. So numbers are going to fluctuate, but per capita to what our population is does matter. And for our stats this year, our violent crime was at a 6-year per capita low. Our property crime was at a per capita low that was even off the charts, right? And so I think the idea that everything is becoming worse and worse is not necessarily shown in the statistics.
Right. Yeah.
But are there challenges? Yeah, absolutely there's challenges. And I think the one that remains and is consistent is recidivism and repeat offenders continue to drive our work on a day-to-day basis. And the bigger global conversation between youth intervention and rehabilitation, but also the role that law enforcement plays in this, it just is the theme that keeps reemerging and keeps kind of rolling through. And so the city's growing, it's predictable. It's not going to stop growing, by the way. Like we could do a bunch of not wise initiatives to try to slow growth. People are still coming to our community. Why? Because it's a phenomenal community. It's a great place to live and raise your family. The growth is going to happen. It's not all bad growth, but we do just need to make sure we're growing our services along with it to make sure we're up to those challenges. But investing in multiple aspects of the criminal justice and the public safety system.
Yeah, we recently sat down with Mayor TenHaken, and he touched on that quite a bit, talking about mentorship. He just said, within our population, it's always up to government and to government services to take care of these issues, but really it should be a community effort. And he talked a lot about repeat offenders and if there's some mentorship and some ways that we could
I think the thing that we've stressed is like we're really good at our job when it comes to solving major crimes. Like we're well above national averages. We'll catch and hold people accountable, especially when it comes to a violent crime component, right? And major property crimes, we're able to do this. The reality is there's already a victim and there's already things that are taking place. And I think for Sioux Falls to maintain what we feel it is, which is truly something special, the investment on the front end has to be there because we're seeing more and more youth who could use intervention. We're seeing some of the socioeconomic struggles that come that are predictable with later manifestation with some crime issues. And it's frustrating for me in particular because people look at us and we have a badge, right? So we're supposed to be the only factor in this. Well, I don't know if you've heard this, but we did this mentorship drive. The mayor and I both have been pretty strong on the mentorship drive about how it's all of us that take the initiative. And so we do this push before December to put 75 mentors, 25 mentors in 3 different title schools. I'm like, well, we should be able to do this as a community, right? At the end of the month, we had 36 people sign up in a city of 225,000. And I'm incredibly frustrated by that, right? Because we profess to care. We got a lot of comments we want to make on Facebook. We got a lot of comments we want to make about how Sioux Falls is this or that at our supper club or whatever social event we're at. But we don't really put things into action about maybe something that we can do that's positive. And again, it's frustrating for me in particular because I like to call out everybody if I'm going to call people out. Because everything becomes politics. It's not politics. It's just statement of facts. If I drive around church or Sunday morning on my way to church, I can see tons of parking lots that are full for churches within our community. I can get 2,000 to 3,000 people at a No Kings protest just last week, but we could put 36 within mentorship positions within our school. We just have to do better when it comes to that front because, again, we're investing in kids, and that has a downstream effect of how their lives can be. And I think we as a community can do better. And I think that's just something we need to continue to focus. And we just need to keep messaging, and eventually sometimes it sticks. So,
So to that point of the city and the growth, are there any areas that you think we need to play catch up, or are we staying pretty well ahead of the curve?
So I think if you look at us from a staffing standpoint, we're going to be in perpetual catch up. Because it's almost impossible for city services to grow at the rate the city's growing given the tax structure and funding structure that's there. So I use this as an example. Sioux Falls proper is now bigger than Des Moines proper, right? I don't. People don't realize that. We're pushing 225,000 people, not the metro. We try to play apples to apples with cities, but we're all different fruits. Like it's apples and oranges and grapes and all sorts of stuff. Well, Des Moines has 370 cops for that size of a community. And as our city grows, we need to grow our police force. This mayor and this council have been fantastic with their support. But the big number that you're trying to bite off sometimes doesn't happen. We saw our counterparts out in Rapid add 20 new FTEs to the police force. A year later, they had 23 vacancies, right? Yeah, the growth you sometimes need to sustain for a city or a community is decisions that are made 10 to 15 years ago on looking to the future. And I think that's something we just have to continue to look to the future as a community and say, okay, as the city continues to grow, we're just gonna have to grow our services along with it and maintain that growth plane. Because a lot of the cool things we'd like to do, like for example, the mental health car, we have a 2-person car that is a mental health professional and one of our CIT trained officers. We'd love to deploy that year round. Right now, we can only do it in the summer because we take one of our school resource cops, make that work, and put that out in that way. So that's kind of how we make do. We reallocate our school resource officers because we can't stop doing that either, and kind of run some of this programming. Eventually, as we get big enough, this programming needs to be full time. There's for years there was this parallel growth chart. As the city grew, our demand for services kind of grew at a similar parallel, right?
Yep.
All of a sudden we hit about 170, 180, and it's like a different exponent. The services or the things that we need to provide started to become much more pronounced. Even just certain things within professional law enforcement, SWAT callouts, for example, used to be not that frequent. Well, now what was once a collateral duty is taking more and more of their time, which then cuts into their primary duty. So again, sustained growth for the future to make sure that we stay ahead of it. Interesting given some of the discussions in peer about contracting growth. That's not going to work for us. We need to make sure that we continue to grow because people are coming and work's coming along with it. But
Yeah.
You mentioned Des Moines. I'm sure as the chief, you've been involved in other associations or groups where you get to see bigger metropolitan areas and cities. What is something that you've seen in Sioux Falls that has reminded you of what maybe some of those bigger communities are doing?
Oh, sure. I think, I go to the Chiefs conference, didn't go last year, but I've gone a couple other years. We get the chance to talk to chiefs from around the country. Inevitably, we find that each one of us is dramatically different. And whatever works somewhere doesn't always work here based off the different factors, but there's good ideas out there and you try to take them, make them your own for your community. And we kind of work back and forth on some different things. And I think for us, the thing that kind of sets us apart from other agencies around the country is that our public never blinked about their support for law enforcement. A lot of agencies around the country took several steps backwards post-2020. That didn't happen for us. We invested in a new public safety training center. We invested in a lot of other things when it came to support for law enforcement. So talking to other places around the country, they're just like, man, you guys are lucky. You don't have to deal with some of these things. And we are fortunate. But again, national news tends to creep into the local level more and more. So we still have some of the thoughts or conceptions that are pushed out there that can affect kind of our hiring pool. We talked about people don't see this as a desirable job anymore. A lot of that national narrative tends to push into our young people. And then that's something that we have to deal with moving forward. And again, we find our most successful applicants typically are service-minded from this part of the country and have an idea of what they want to serve their community.
Yeah. Can you share one thing that maybe keeps you up at night?
Yeah. We are incredibly lucky about our officers and some of the injuries they sustained. Like I said, it's just, if you look historically nationwide, we have, 2 line of duty deaths that were way back in the 20s and 30s. Again, seeing more and more violence being used against our officers. Again, and the type of violence are typically from people who are not strangers to the criminal justice system. It constantly has me a little bit concerned. Well, not a lot concerned, not a little bit concerned. It's one of those things that you see the trends and you see the things that happen. We had an officer shot last year. We have more and more situations where weapons are being brandished against our people, and that just gives me great pause and concern. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, that's one of the things that'll pop into my mind, just the safety component. And it's just something that, again, I think we need to work collectively on the whole system to make sure that we're doing our part to make sure violent criminals aren't being reintroduced to our community with little to no supervision. I think it's one of those things, parole. I was talking to a chief from another city, and he was talking to his neighbors about another parole incident. And he's like, my neighbors didn't even know what parole is. Right? They didn't even really. I'm like, oh yeah, we use this jargon sometimes.
Right.
Well, I'm like, well, they, in lieu of serving their sentence within the penitentiary, they are released under supervision within our communities to serve out the rest of their sentence, right? And so when we talk about parolees committing crimes or committing violence or that thing, it's like, well, the level of supervision is what we're concerned about. Because we know how the story ends, and that's what I think we want to continue to try to advocate for. We get it too. There's no easy solution, but it's one that has to be looked at and make sure that we're honest about recidivism rates and honest about the challenges that come along with it.
Yeah.
Because I'm an equal proponent for services and rehabilitation. Like you can advocate for all measures of the system. It's not one or the other. So.
Well, you're in a unique situation too in the role that you play. For us, a construction company, unless we have a specific job that's requiring 24-hour work around the clock to get something completed, we usually have hours where we shut down and we can turn phones off, and that probably doesn't happen for you.
No, so I've had my phone on. Basically, I got on the SWAT team in 2009, 2010. So I kind of joke I've been on call perpetually since then. The only difference now is when prior to getting chief, I'd have to go out and handle stuff.
Sure.
Now I just get notifications of what's taking place. It's a little easier, but yeah, the phone is always next to my bed and always next to my head. But again, our people have it even. They have it worse than I do right now, because they're the ones that have to go out and deal with situations. It's very rare that I have to get out of bed. Like I said, if I'm investigating something, we're in trouble. There's far more qualified, seasoned people now. I'm an office cop.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is no holiday or vacation for police work.
No.
It
Actually, because one of my favorite stories throughout my tenure in the police department is it was Christmas Eve, and we had a call where a lady was horribly assaulted by her domestic partner, which I kind of say we're still more likely to be hurt by people that we profess to say love us or that we're in relationships with, this kind of things. And so she was horribly assaulted. We worked the case, figured out where this person was. They got out of Sioux Falls. Long story short, they ended up in Marion, South Dakota, took their whole family hostage in Marion, South Dakota. And so it's Christmas Eve, and we know this call is happening. And the Highway Patrol SWAT team goes out, and then they call for us for assistance. And so Christmas Eve, every single one of us shows up at the station, leaves to go help somebody in a different community. And I was just proud because it wasn't even a question, right? We were all coming, we were all showing up. And that's one of the observations about law enforcement. We always say family first, or we always say, this has to come first. Well, the reality in our line of work is other people come first. True, it would have been cool to be home with your family on Christmas Eve, but that family needed us more, and that's why you sign up for this job and take this responsibility, because somebody needs you more, and that's the family dynamic of this job. I think the people don't understand the toll it takes on your family, but they also have to be supportive and understand it. That doesn't mean it doesn't produce some friction. It definitely produces some friction from time to time, because these things happen at inopportune times. But we kind of joked on our way down to Marion that day that if they really wanted this call out over quick, they just should have sent our wives down, because they probably would have, we're not missing Christmas Eve service for this. We're
might have
going to
escalated it.
Grab this guy and rip him out of the house. So no, we got a playbook to follow. We can't have you storming the house. But but just
great.
one of those stories. So
That's great. One of our core values with our company is family, and so that's great to, we can preach that, and we can say, hey, family first. You got to go do that. And I never thought of it that way, that your family first is other families that you got to.
I mean, it's sometimes you try to find the balance, but there are certain situations where this is what you do. This is what your job or your function is. And it's when the pager goes off, not a pager anymore, when the phone goes off. When I first got on the SWAT team, I had a pager. Then you'd go handle it. So
Yeah. Well, this one you kind of answered already, but maybe it's a different answer to the question. But, what is the biggest misconception people have about crime in Sioux Falls? I know you talked about the growth.
Yeah.
But
So it's interesting, and we decide what the story is based off our opinion, more off facts than anything, right? So I kind of go back a couple years ago. We had 2 homicides in Sioux Falls. Now, homicides are not necessarily the best number to track. If you look at a call for service of 130,000 calls a year, we're talking, a very minimal call volume. But again, it's what grabs attention, right? So we had 2 homicides that year. Not one person said, wow, how safe is our community, right? Oh, golly, this is what a great place to live, incredibly safe. We had somebody walk up to the mayor real seriously when we had 2 and be like, I'm really concerned about all the murders in town, right? Why? Because the way news is cycled in, the way it's streamed in, the way things are, these drive clicks, these generate attention. And so even looking at this, I talked about per capita numbers earlier, like we're really celebrating these per capita decreases in property crimes and violent crime. There's a lot of hard work has gone into that. And had somebody mention to me at one point, like, yeah, but here's the thing, our perception is this. Our perception is this is happening, this is happening.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's your perception. Like reality is what we need to deal in.
Right.
And these statistics are showing us this. We've never said that Sioux Falls is crime free. There's always going to be this element to it, but to kind of overblow things. But again, I don't want to get on this soapbox of like blaming the media, but the media is what we've constructed it to be, which is we want and we consume bad news at a high rate. And if you consume that, that's what is provided for you. But even headlines, there was a headline on one of our local media sites, Sioux Falls shooting suspect wanted by Rapid City, right? The shooting took place in Rapid City, but the headline was constructed to make you think this Sioux Falls shooting happened, so you would click on it, right? Well, we're really good at reading headlines, and we're not really good at digging into the meat of stories. And again, this comes up again where talking about consuming bad news and driving and generating clicks and responses. I can have somebody tell me whatever bad news story just happened, but a lot of people can't tell me any of the good news, right? The story about our incredible crime numbers, a 43% reduction in stolen vehicles from 23 to 25, played for about a minute on the news, right? And it was buried under multiple other headlines. And then I kind of challenge people because I've had more speaking requests recently than any time I've been chief when this ICE issue became a topic. And again, I'll take every speaking opportunity I can get, but ICE became this story and this topic. So I was getting into places that I had never been before because they wanted to talk about this. Ironically, the thing I have the least to do with within law enforcement, but I'll still take the opportunity. Yeah. So we end up negatively with this, or usually with this negative kind of connotation towards talking about what's happening. And then I challenge people. I'm like, hey, can any of you tell me about Camp Postcard? And they're like, they have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Well, Camp Postcard is a camp we've run for the past 5 years in northern South Dakota, where Camp Nisodak up by Wabe, where we take our SROs identify at-risk sixth graders who would never have the opportunity to go to camp. We then, with the Volunteers of America, have this program where we bring 60 to 70 kids up to this camp that's counseled by cops. We build relationships with kids, with law enforcement, while instilling life lessons when it comes to character, trustworthiness, all these different things. Have statistical data to prove how that strengthens relationships and views of law enforcement. It also has downstream effects for behavior, school performance, all these different things. We've done press releases about it. We've done videos about it. We've done news stories about it. Nobody can tell me about it ever. But they can tell me about every negative thing that happens. And I think that's where we need to celebrate good stories. It's not just us producing good stories. There's other good stories out there that we need to celebrate rather than this cycle of negativity that tends to exist in our social media streams, which is where whether we want to admit it or not, where we primarily get our news and form our opinions based off what we see there.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you probably just answered this, but as you're out in the public talking to people, do you believe the vast majority feel like Sioux Falls is doing better than what the perception is, or that there's more going on than people realize?
I think from my standpoint, there is an idea that it's worse than it actually is, right? I think because that's the narrative that kind of streams. But again, do I really blame people? No, right? Because if you've lived in Sioux Falls long enough, like we have, when I drive into town from Bridgewater, where my grandparents had a farm, we'd cross Skunk Creek and there'd be a sign, Sioux Falls population 80,000. Like, well, we're triple that now, right? So as the city continues to grow, as things change, as we become a metro, like we have to understand we're becoming a metro in a bigger city, and that there's going to be things that happen, but we're still Sioux Falls, we're still unique, we're still a great community, and I think that's where we have to kind of like not double into or get more sucked into the negative, but I think the thing we have to really focus on is, well, what makes us this great community? It's investment in youth, it's philanthropic efforts, It's collaboration between different agencies and different groups to make sure that we keep this working forward. And I think that's something we just have to kind of continue to focus on and push forward because, again, if you look at the horizon, if we add 5,000 to 6,000 people a year for the foreseeable future, we're going to be over 300,000 before we know it. Mm-hmm. And again, the challenges that we see in other big metros are going to be our challenges too. We have to just make sure we're equipped to deal with them.
Yep.
One more play on the perception side of things, because being in the line of service and in government, people oftentimes have the perception that you control a lot of stuff. What's one thing that people assume cops have control over that you really don't?
Man, that's a great question. The laws.
Right.
And so, again, I think everybody needs to go as part of, I think everybody should take a biannual civics test so they understand how things work.
Right.
Right. And this idea that like we enforce the laws that are made by our elected representatives. Right. And so when there's laws or things that are out there, things they would like to see different, I would kind of joke we're the front door of the whole system. Mm-hmm. A lot of things happen once you get through the front door, right? And different things that happen there. And so I think this idea or this conception that we somehow are arbitrarily making up these things as we go, when it's, again, voted on by either state legislature, city council, or just things that are happening. I think there's this idea that we just arbitrarily, like, I got a big book over there. I'm like, I'm going to make a rule today about e-bikes.
If you could make a law, what would be the law you make?
Oh, man, the law I would do today is I would ban all gas station smoke shop drugs that are out there. Mm-hmm. There's legislation that's out there. It's a class 2 misdemeanor. It's hard to enforce. It's just one of those things that I've called for and worked with for prohibition on all these items numerous times. The smoke shops on every corner are something that are in our community. And again, the challenges through the chemistry and the legislation and the different loopholes that are there are frustrating. If I had a scepter today, just because I get pressed on this one a lot recently, like that's the one that comes to mind. And I also put governors on all motorcycles. All crotch rockets can only go 30 miles per hour. That's it. We'd solve that issue right now. Because again, kind of putting things back in context, right? If the number one complaint I receive when I go out to the grocery store or go to the public or people find out I'm a cop, number one complaint, motorcycle noise. Motorcycle noise and speed, right?
Yeah, they fly.
Yep. And again, people ask about, like, well, why is this? I'm kind of going off a side road here, but it's been worse 2020 because the overall disregard for people around you. Mm-hmm, right? Sure. There's been a loss of civility a little bit about what my actions do to impact others or if I care about that or not. Right. And again, typically the excessive noise, the excessive speed, and again, we kind of pick on probably sport bikes here right now. Yep. Harley Davidsons have been doing this forever. I don't know why when you go down Phillips Avenue, you think everybody who's sitting in a diner wants to hear your Harley Davidson. Right? They don't, right? Sorry. But anyway, but idea of people around us and making decisions that are, impacting others. Absolutely. Right? And so this will be one. We've gotten more aggressive than ever before when it comes to speed and vehicle noise. But we've added something like 30 square miles since TenHaken's been mayor. Mm-hmm. Our traffic units, the same size or smaller than it was. Why? Because we have all these different areas we're trying to fill. So, and everybody loves and wants more traffic enforcement until when? They get pulled over by the traffic cop.
Yeah. Well, not to give you a tip here, I don't live too far from Highway 100.
Yep.
But I think if you put a car, 10:30 on a Wednesday night down there.
Yep.
I mean, if our windows are open, it's a pack of about 30.
Talk about collaboration, right? So we've talked about Highway Patrol, Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. I'm like, have at it on Highway 100. Mm-hmm. Right? Do whatever you want. There's no turf wars. Like, if they want to come run traffic, they can run traffic. But what people don't realize about us sometimes is we are literally, every cop's on a call, and we have 10 to 15 calls holding. Mm-hmm. And the triage system that we have sometimes. And that's where, funny thing about speed, like, there's remedies. Like, speed enforcement cameras would have an impact.
Yeah.
In our state, that's a tricky proposition, right? Because of the libertarian mindset that we kind of carry about Big Brother and government and cameras. But technology is the the wave of the future for law enforcement. We've seen it with our camera system within our town, with our license plate readers that we recently implemented. Like, they are making a difference every single day. But what technology we use, we try to just tiptoe into, because we want people to understand that it's going to be used judiciously and appropriately and produces a net benefit.
Sure. So maybe without naming any names, can you share one funny arrest story?
Oh, man. So what's funny is, like, when I was brand new, if you asked me for a good story, like, I would remember them immediately. And then as the years went on, like, I would forget everything until I drove by a corner or looked at a house, and then the story would come back to me. Right. And it would always kind of work its way back in that way, shape, or form. So now when people ask me, like, I look out the window and I can see that apartment complex, well, that's where my first dead body was. That's where we retrieved a stolen bike from a local pastor that kind of went sideways. That was a whole other side story. Tried to find this guy's bike. That corner over there by the gas station was site to numerous calls. And so, like, the funny stories kind of blend and kind of fade away. And it's like anything we do that becomes routine, what was once remarkable becomes routine, and it just becomes another kind of thing within your day. But I mean, there's funny stuff that happens all the time. And then you just kind of forget about it. And then you move on to the next thing. I think one thing in particular is, when I locked my keys in my car one time with it still driving. It's usually my mistakes that stick out as funny. I was brand new, and this person was high on methamphetamine running through the streets over by Madison Kiwanis Fire Station, and I'm rolling up brand new, and I'm like, windows are down, and I'm listening, trying to figure out where this person's at. And all of a sudden, they appear between two parked cars and dive through my passenger window. So that person comes through my window, is right here as I'm driving, and I'm like, oh, eject, right? So I hit the unlock button, jump out of the car, lock the doors on the way out of the car. We have two keys typically, but as I get out and come around the rear of the car to deal with her, some guy who was watching this all was like, dude, your car's rolling down the street. I look, and sure enough, my car is driving down the street without me. So I run back. Long story short, as you get further into your career, everything slows down. When you're very new, everything is fast. My best remedy was to try to jump through the window, hit the brake with my hand, and then put it into park. Didn't work. Then I remembered I had the key on my thing, so I undid the lock, got in, did the whole thing, got it. And then she kicked me in the groin and spit in my face. That was the end of the call. So never forget that one. But then later, when you get in like these high-moving, stressful incidents, like especially my time on SWAT, like time would slow down, your heart rate would decrease, like you'd see things clearer, because why? You'd been habituated to stress, you'd been habituated to the unknown, and almost like you just, oh yeah, I just see the path now, and that's the proficiency that comes from any job we do, whether it's medicine, like some high-stress situations. You kind of just find laser focus in those. But at first, you got to learn by making mistakes.
Yep.
So looking at Brad doesn't bring back any memories?
No, it doesn't. No, that doesn't. Yeah.
I think that answered the question. I was going to ask, what was the most bizarre situation you responded to? That might classify as that.
Yeah. I mean, there's bizarre ones. And I think one of the things on a serious note, when you talk about bizarre, is the mental health calls that we go on. And just you start interacting with people who are struggling with things that they believe this is 100% reality. Right. And I always kind of say, people talk about why law enforcement should be in mental health. Well, the reality is that when they kind of decided to take down institutions, manage these issues within the public, they didn't really create anything to follow up with that. And undefined problems within society go to who? The cops. Right. I kind of joke. Fire has a very strict set of calls they go on. If there's nobody to go to it, they just call us. That can include a snapping turtle in the street, like raccoons. We have animal control now, but like my neighbor threw cheese on my car. Apparently that's our call too. But we ended up like picking up the void for these mental health calls. Right. And I kind of said, especially when this conversation was coming to a head, I'm like, by all means, feel free to invent something different, because we rose to the challenge of it. I think there's this idea that we were ill-trained or ill-equipped to handle these mental health calls. It's actually the opposite. Outside of mental health professionals, you'll find fewer people better trained than officers because they deal with it every day. They see it every day. We give them up levels of training to kind of deal with it. One of my favorite stories about this is we were dealing with a suicidal subject one time. We had a gun to their head outside of one of our health institutions, right? And the person on the phone with them was a licensed mental health person, right? But this is crisis of a different level that they don't typically see. Well, one of our negotiators showed up to help that person on the phone, and the person just went, right? And our crisis negotiator, because, again, experience, practice, proficiency, right, was able to navigate that situation, talk that person out of it. We got them out of their situation and got them where they needed to be to get the help they needed. Those are the stories you don't hear about, right? You just hear about, like, inevitably sometimes tragedy happens. But, again, we're still waiting for somebody else to create some other system with which to take work from us. Like I said, we don't need any more work. If somebody wants to take our work, they're more than welcome to have it.
Well, and it certainly seems, just even across the country, mental health is a much more serious problem than it ever has been.
Yep, I think we're much more aware of it. And I think this is something, though, is we're more aware of it for my kids, and my message to youth sometimes is never forget the resiliency piece of what you're experiencing. Right, so try to build resiliency. There's certain different things that are obviously different levels of mental health and what we experience and what the treatment is and what needs to happen. But we also need to be building resiliency for some of these other issues that are kind of like we get lumped into the mental health issue about either whether it's anxiety or whether it's like some of the stress things that we know we deal with. The resiliency piece is there, but then I kind of try to just talk about the wide spectrum of what mental health is. Right. When we say mental health, there's a lot of different things we're talking about. And again, the levels of care and intervention are different for each one.
This question too, I mean, you've kind of answered a lot of them, but was there anything that really surprised you back from your days in the field and being chief?
So a couple things that surprised me. Again, I grew up 16th in Duluth, and I delivered newspapers, Shopping News, and Argus Leader. By the way, I feel there's certain things that we all are world class in. I just want to brag. I'm a world class paper thrower. Like my route back in the day through those neighborhoods, me and my brother on our bikes, we could fling the Shopping News with amazing accuracy.
No rooftops, no broken windows.
No, slide that thing on the porch almost every time from a variety of positions. But again, I grew up there. That was my neighborhood. It was also the first beat I patrolled as a cop. And I had no idea what was happening in my own neighborhood. Right. Like no idea whatsoever as to like what was going on in that house, and the regularity with which police were involved in people's lives. Right. I naively thought, again, when I first started, oh yeah, you go to some calls, but you also run a lot of traffic. Very quickly, we were just going to calls, and that's all we were doing. And this is back in 2006 when I first got on the street, And I think that's something that, again, we know more today, but I think people would still be surprised at what's happening within their own neighborhoods and the types of situations that police find themselves in. And again, we have great people who do great work, and we keep them pretty busy, but they are driven by service. They have good servant hearts, and they continue to work. And again, I always kind of say this too. Here's my observation as chief, though. We are right probably 99% of the time, right? Our people do great work. But we are not perfect, right? If you take 130,000 calls for service, even if we're right 99.5% of the time, we can't make everybody happy.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And I think you'll even find as administrators within your own business, whatever decision you make isn't going to make people happy.
Yep.
A lot of times, my observation about being chief is you get the lose-lose decision. If there was a win in this decision, it would have been it was already made several levels before in the chain of command. You only get handed the ones that are kind of lose-lose. But that's just something that comes with the territory of being in administration. So
about the paper throwing, the football career didn't work out. I think if we went to like ESPN Ocho, I think they could do like a Olympic paper throwing or something.
I think they could, especially like the mounted bike division. I was especially good at.
Not on a Harley.
Not on a Harley. Nope. My Raleigh mountain bike, which was later stolen a couple years after that. But anyway.
So before we started, I was telling you a story about growing up in Lincoln High School. We both went to Lincoln High School, and there may have been some incidences that we did back in the day that we couldn't do today because of technology, because of cameras, and I tell my kids that all the time. How has technology changed? You mentioned technology changed, but like body cams, that's been a big thing.
So body cams in particular, we never were, like, I think there was this idea that we were against them, right? So we had audio recorders. From the time I got hired, there was audio recorders, right? So we had an in-car camera, audio recorder that would patch back. Body cams have been great for us because they ultimately prove
the he said, she said.
He said out of it, right?
Yeah.
And more often than not, we are proven to be correct in our decision and our actions, right? It also provides that perspective that is really like unique to certain situations. And here's the thing, again, giving people grace. Talk to people, right? On these police calls in particular, they're in a measure of stress and uncertainty, right? They're dealing with the perception of the moment that they see. They don't not always seeing things as clearly. As a young cop, you're always told, well, here's how the calls work. There's their version of the story, and there's their version of the story. And the truth is usually somewhere in between, right? So having cameras to just kind of say, yeah, here's what happened, and here's the evidentiary value of it too. If it plays in court, it typically is pretty key. And now some of the technology advances that are coming off that are pretty cool. AI is on the front edge of everything right now. Again, inevitably, AI will be used by everybody, but somehow it'll be hard for the cops to use because of courts and stuff like that. But we're already seeing efficiencies from technology. Our camera network, by leveraging traffic cameras within our community, we've been able to solve major crimes just from passive camera footage. People's home cameras have caught crimes for us that have been key in solving murders, homicides. But again, even like I think the trivial or mundane when it comes to law enforcement, you look at a traffic accident and be like, oh, that's just minor work. Well, our cameras leveraged over 100 accidents last year. We could see on video what the accident was, provide that, and then provide clarity, which then streamlines the insurance process and it streamlines these different things. And then our license plate readers, which we recently implemented, we have a very small buy-in to that technology. I think Madison, South Dakota has more license plate readers than we do in Sioux Falls because we wanted to prove proof of concept. But we made over 40 arrests out of occupied stolen vehicles last year leveraging some of this technology.
That's great.
And so again, technology's coming. We can be afraid of it or we can embrace it, but it's going to produce efficiencies that we need. And again, that are like really value add.
Maybe eliminate some of that human error, which you mentioned we're all human.
All human. Yep.
Is there a secret like video library of body cam footage of like the chief locking his keys in the car and throwing away?
Funny story on that, right?
Christmas party footage.
So as we used to have to change the 8mm tapes out of the camcorder.
Yeah.
So the guy that was coming to cover me on that call, who's now a lieutenant, was just turning down the street, and he was in the process of changing his 8mm tape as he came in. And as he turns down around the corner, all he sees is my legs sticking out of the car, trying to get the car stopped. It's like if only he would have had that on tape, it would have made a good footage.
Didn't catch it. Whoops,
Didn't catch
darn
it. Yeah. So.
Actually, yeah. If we want to switch over, we'll talk a little bit more on the construction side of things. That's obviously our side of things, and on the design of obviously we were both Brad and I were in leadership Sioux Falls at different times, and part of that class is taking tour of the local facilities, and we took a tour of the old jail versus what the new jail system is, and I mean just night and day difference on how that designed of, the old one, a lot of corners, they were moving inmates in and out on 3 or 4 times a day. Now very open setting. Do you see more design changes coming, or is there something that you would recognize?
It's interesting, that discussion, because the Minnehaha County Jail is incredibly efficient, right? The Minnehaha County administrators, by the way, I'm thankful that's a county issue, not a city issue, right? It's statutorily the responsibility of the sheriff's office. But again, the efficiency for both the inmates and the staff, which is why the prison conversation was a bit vexing for me, right? Because I've seen what an effective modern prison can do. And if you ever walk through the old parts of the prison, which look like Shawshank Redemption, literal, like it's not an exaggeration, right? That's exactly what it looks like. The discussion on not building a prison was just befuddling to me, right? Because the efficiencies you get are people are in an environment where they at least have the opportunity to be somewhat stable in their living condition, but the staff have a much better environment with which to work,
right?
And so better staff environment, better prisoner environment produces then the possibility for programming and potentially the way to cut into and reduce some of this recidivism fact. But it was glaring to me, taking a tour right before an event up at the pen. We walked through the old part of the pen and saw people stacked triple deep in bunks in certain areas. And again, my dad was the prison chaplain as a kid growing up before he took a job at the college. As a kid, I'd walk through that penitentiary and see the things there too and have a different perspective. But we get caught with the price tag sometimes.
Sure.
We forget the benefit that's there is pretty universal. Not in my other statement about government in general is we try to kick cans down the road. Like our training center was a good example of this, right? It was built in '79. It was dilapidated. The city was 80,000 when it was built. Our city's growing. Our services are growing. Our dispatch center's growing. It needed to be built. And the mayor and the council had the courage in 2020 to say, you know what, we're going to build it now. Right, at a time when bids were pretty iffy. You remember you guys know it better than anybody, like the cost escalation from construction.
Yeah.
Bid came through, built it. If we had waited a couple years to build that thing rather than 55 million, it would cost 85 million.
Yeah, for sure.
And the further we push things down the road, the more expensive they become. They don't become cheaper. And I think that's where getting this prison done was a big deal, so to make sure that that's something that can be. Because again, the efficiencies that are there, and people lose sight of the staff in this whole equation. Yeah, for the staff there, they're going to have a better chance to retain staff, to have staff that are safe, and that should be a priority in building that place.
So yeah, I guess kind of to Brian's point too, and what you said, the design is both effectively efficient for not only the staff and safety, but even the behavior of the people that are in there.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the environments, and if you go through the Minnehaha County Jail, like you guys have seen, like, oh yeah, I see how this works. Like I see the safety of the component, the programming of the component. Like even like the iPad stuff is kind of interesting, right? People are like, why would they give prisoners iPad? Well, they have to earn like time by doing videos that work on some of these challenges or issues to be able to watch a movie. And then again, too, it's good for the staff because the inmates have something to do, right? It's like your kids sometimes, they have nothing to do, like things are going to happen. Like engaged people are going to get stuff done and have a more stable environment.
Absolutely. You talked about the training center. Two questions about that. Number one, did you have much involvement in that design and development of that? And two, what has that changed for training and because it's an amazing facility.
Yeah.
It's incredible what you're able to do there.
And I think I kind of joked, Chief McGruff and I were like, our predecessors got that one to the goal line, and we just got pushed across the line on it.
That's effective.
Yeah, effective. It worked, so we're not taking any credit for it. It was kind of our predecessors which pushed pretty hard for that.
Right.
And it got it to where it is. And it's an incredible facility, allows us to train in ways we've never trained before. And also integrate different aspects of training with the driving course there, the cityscape, but then host advanced level trainings. I was there last week, and we had, and by the way, the dispatch center is phenomenal. It's cutting edge. It's what our community needed because people forget that's there too, right? We had new recruit training while fire was doing their new recruit training. We had an advanced training class for officers from all around the region, another classroom. We had the Jefferson High School program where they kind of expose people to careers in another room, and we had all these different pieces at work, and it was just kind of cool to see that come and play. But like anything, right after it's built, you're like, man, we should have made that a little bigger.
Right. Yeah. We hear that a lot.
Because you plan for what's there, and then like back when we designed that place, I remember because I was being consulted as part of the training team, like, what's the biggest recruit class you think you'll ever have? I'm like, when we ever have a recruit class bigger than 16? That would never happen. So the classroom was designed with this idea that a recruit class is 16. Well, a couple of years after opening it, we had a recruit class of 26, right? Because why the need changed, and so the adaptability of it. But we're good there for decades to come, and it's been a great investment and a great addition to our community.
I was gonna say, if you wanted us to come do some remodeling or put an addition,
yeah, you guys want to tear a wall down or two? Yeah, we'll let you know. Those government bids are kind of tricky to navigate. You guys know that. So,
do you get to use the facility? I mean, you mentioned you were there, but do you
go up there quite a bit? Took a few hot laps around the track, shot in the range a little bit. But yeah, it's a great facility. And again, hosting stuff out there, we can host some pretty cool classes. We hosted Northwestern Command College for our state. We had close to 18 students from around the state come and host this higher level Northwestern University Command College. So again, it's just cool to have these types of things and the availability.
On the construction side of things, from what we do, we've seen obviously crime and
Yeah.
thefts on job sites. We've seen, trailers broken into, and again, it seems like it's kind of repeat offenders. There's a lot of
Always.
Yeah. What do you see kind of what could construction companies do to help support? You talked about collaboration.
So-
what's something we could do.
I've seen a good proactive approach towards securing stuff. Like the job has just changed.
Yep.
I've seen the lock boxes that have been implemented,
Parking
tools,
equipment in front of doors.
parking equipment in front of doors, tools suspended by cranes.
Yep.
I've seen
Hanging it in the air.
Right. So there's modifications that have been made because we would see it too, and our property crimes detectives would be like, "Oh, this happened." I'm just using a generic name.
Yep.
Bob must be released. Let me check. Yep, Bob's released. Right. And so the nexus of that, and then moving that type of tool and equipment usually funds drugs, right, or an addiction or a habit or something like that. So some of the proactive steps I've taken, and it kind of became one of those things too. I mean, we would love for that not to happen. And we would love we had enough cops that we could actively patrol construction sites. It's just not the reality.
Yeah.
And kind of the conversation came with stolen vehicles too. People are like, well, why should I have to lock my car? Or why should I should be able to leave my car unlocked. You're victim
running
shaming
in
me.
the parking lot.
Or running in the parking lot. You're
Right.
victim shaming me. I should be able to do that. People, I go, yeah, but that's not the reality.
Right.
Right. Especially with the car component, there was kind of this like idea that, oh, well, if you would catch them and arrest them, then we wouldn't have to do this. I'm like, well, we've done it already.
Right.
Like we've caught them and we've arrested them, right? And I think you even saw a little bit post 2020, property crimes were diminished a little bit. I think there was this kind of message that, oh, property crimes aren't real crimes. Yes, they absolutely are real crimes.
Yeah.
Right. What we're talking about is usually, I kind of say this, and I do say this, criminals typically aren't mutually exclusive to one crime category. They usually participate in all the crime categories, right?
Yeah.
It's my body cam talking to me over there in the corner. It's just charging, don't worry. But yeah, so they're participating in a lot of different. So if we catch somebody usually in this realm, it's going to have an impact. And our violent crime unit has done a good job of doing a lot of gun cases. Well, that's part of why we saw reductions within stolen vehicles was there's usually a nexus between the two. So impacting drug crime sometimes impacts property crimes for construction sites or different things like that. But yeah, it's frustrating for our detectives because they're like, yeah, I can call it. As soon as that guy gets released, we will see a spike in these cases.
Really?
Yeah.
There's one incident I want to tell you about because it was a lot of fun to do. I mean, it was, and hopefully it was something that we could promote to do more of. But about 8-9 years ago, we implemented GPS on all of our vehicles, and we put those on our vehicles just to track them. And now we have cameras, dash cams on them. But the company that we bought the GPS from, they said, hey, we have these mobile sticks. They're not really like plug into your car. They're just a mobile stick. And we had just had a theft on one of our job sites that they, we put padlocks on our stuff. They don't even cut the padlock anymore. They cut the hinges off and just swing the door open. And so we said, yeah, actually, we've been seeing an increase in some stuff we'd like to take care of. So they sent us one of these little bricks, and we had an old generator that didn't run. It was in our shop. And so our mechanic took it apart, hid this brick up inside it, put it on a job site with a real loose chain on it. And I think it was less than 10 days, the thing was gone. And so we started tracking it on GPS, and we saw it go to a house, right off of Cliff Avenue.
Yeah.
So we called your team, and we're like, hey, we just had this stolen, and we know where it is. Do you want to go look at it? The team was great. They're like, yep, we'll go right on it and check it out. And next thing we know, this guy was, I think, grand theft auto.
Yeah, I remember this case.
Yeah.
He had just piles and piles of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
UTVs all ripped apart and stuff. And
Yeah,
we're like,
I know exactly the call. I think we had, there was a lot of property that was retrieved from that call. It was, a good example. And here's the thing, too, with that. It's kind of interesting. We could use GPS data for violent crimes sometimes different than we can for property crimes. Like the threshold for a search warrant or something was different. Like people air tags.
Yeah.
Like they're just not, almost not reliable enough.
Right.
Where there's a little bit of a
Gray
area with them. And then but to have positive cases where we take out major players who had tons of stolen goods with some technology and some cooperation, that's a big win. So,
great. It was fun to be a part of that. It was fun to see the process work.
I mean, did you put on a vest? Did you go in with
I
them,
didn't get to go. No,
Okay.
they made me stay back.
You should have tried that. Yeah, should have tried that.
Well, what are maybe some risks that a business owner or construction crew probably doesn't think about or should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think you guys have covered some of it, but like opportunities for easy pickings, right, are just something that we have to eliminate. It's just the reality is, again, people will seek to victimize people, but they typically choose the easy targets, right? And so that's one of those things where we kind of know the game plan a little bit. We kind of know what people are doing, what they're trying to do. Things change, they ebb and flow. But to know what the crooks are up to these days and prepare defenses for it, we see a shift periodically, right, in what people are trying. And loopholes get closed sometimes, but then they just find the next scam. And what we see now is like our property crimes went down this year, our frauds went way up. Why this became harder, well, then we're going to try fraud now. We're going to try washing checks, but the internet or online scamming that takes place and the things that happen there. So people just will kind of move from crime cycle to crime cycle. Even casino robberies, right? Well, we kind of designed our way out of casino robberies with a lot of them having cameras and buzzed access.
Yep.
We don't see near the number. So as we kind of change and adapt to one trend, then the next trend emerges and we have to be able, so to kind of know what the trends are, to be able to adapt to whatever trend is there. And now some of the, like from a corporation standpoint, the phishing emails, the scams that come through on a payroll front, like I read some of these reports they get through and people are victimized pretty regularly that you'll never hear about by clicking on the wrong link or sending payment to the wrong place. And that's like the new way for businesses is to try to hit them that way, which again, there'll always be a market for people trying to steal tools and job site equipment. But now this one has become a preferred way, and it's pretty technologically complex what they can do, and people can slip up pretty easily on it.
Which that's probably a whole different force that you have of people,
Yeah.
when you started there probably wasn't a big computer.
Great point,
system.
right? So when I first got hired, what was fraud? Fraud was checks. Like it was bad checks, copy checks, like different things like that. And that was the primary thing.
Like an old typewriter in the van.
And like an old typewriter, like, Leonardo DiCaprio, Catch Me If You Can, washing checks, doing things, right? Well, then as we build defenses as a society against that sort of activity, right? Well, then people aren't going to stop being criminals. They're just going to find a new way to do it, a new way to kind of get that in there. So that's kind of the current trend, and seeing what ebbs and flows and what the next evolution of fraud or property crime is. Yeah.
So talking about like just even homeowners, what's something you could tell the homeowners, what's one or two things that they should do? Like, well, I mean, lock your doors first, but
Put a light on the outside of your house.
leave it on all the time.
Like it legitimately makes a difference.
Really?
Well-lit areas are less likely. We do lighting audits for places, and one of the first things we say is like, put a light up, right? My street in particular has no street lights. Almost every house has their own lamp in their front yard, to produce that light.
Yeah.
And then investment in cameras does help.
Sure.
It becomes a deterrent almost more than anything.
Right.
And again, it's also pretty nice if they're pretty clearly visible.
You want people to know that there's a camera there.
Yep, exactly. But people, like, they wear face coverings, but at least we know activity, we know trends, we know roughly what they're wearing. That can become helpful down the road. So I think we'll see even more in the future as camera technology is now very affordable and accessible by almost everybody. As more of those have come out, they've been, like I said, we've solved homicides based off people's home cameras.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. It's a huge, huge value. And again, last night, not that call, but a different call, we were looking for somebody. We're canvassing neighborhoods, checking home cams, and we're getting immediate results and feedback from that. So it helps, and we appreciate people's cooperation with that too.
We've got Ring doorbells at our house. I know just in the last 2 months, that's changed. With they have AI integrated now, where you can even facial recognition through a Ring.
It's pretty wild.
It will tell you hey, your wife is at that door.
When we were kids, a camcorder was like this big, and you had to carry it around with a support crew, and now it's this little camera that can be about everywhere.
And they're like 8K. They have great resolution.
Yep.
Well, do you have any other advice for the construction world about just being proactive?
I think
working with the department.
Yeah, I think the proactive piece is just key. And again, inevitably, like a lot of property crimes, they're frustrating. Like even my first example with property crimes is somebody stole my bass guitar way back in the day when I was in college. Getting that back was a lot of hoops to jump through. Found it at a pawn shop, then it had to be held in evidence forever. And the system can be frustrating when you're kind of working through some of these property crime cases, but time and patience, again, are key, and it's just one of those things that is inevitably frustrating for a lot of people because, again, what's the frustration? man, it's always the same people again and again, right? And that's inevitably the frustration that we see. It kind of sucks some of the joy out of the job for our people. Sure. Like, I just arrested this person, right? And now we're dealing with this again. And again, not being critical of the system. The system is what it is. It's the best in the world as far as that goes. It's built on a threshold of proof and evidence. But we also just have to recognize when people are repeatedly victimizing our people that we have to maybe look for different ways to impact recidivism.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will touch on another point, a great experience that we had with your team. We had another theft where broke into a job site, took a bunch of stuff, and some of it were some pretty expensive pieces. These decking guns, they cost about $10,000 bucks a piece. We had 3 of them. And
no kidding.
We were in the middle of decking, so we needed them.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it was actually a random deal where they were stuffed in a closet in an apartment, and there was a fire alarm that went off. So obviously the fire department goes through, opened up a closet, and here's all a bunch of stuff that says Jans Corporation on it. Like, I don't think this belongs to you.
It's not official Jans Corporation storage.
Right, yeah.
You know,
so
a closet in the apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
So we got the call the next day and said, hey, are these yours? And we said, yeah, actually, we are missing those and a bunch of other stuff. And so I got to come down to the impound and talk to the group there, and they were like, we have to keep some stuff for evidence. And I said, well, these 3 things are very expensive, and we need them. And they were able to release them and say, hey, take them. We've got pictures. We've got enough other evidence. And said, yep, this is what we need. So,
yeah, and even there's like, we as law enforcement, sometimes we're working with the courts, right? Mm-hmm. And we're like, what do you need for prosecution?
Right.
Like, can we just take a picture of this and release it back? In some situations, yes. In other situations, no, we need that piece of evidence, because as soon as we don't, all of a sudden it gets into court, and then there's this discussion about what exactly are we talking about, and the legal system, I'm going to call it gamesmanship, right? Because there's a certain back and forth that happens within the courtrooms, but I'm glad we could get that back to you.
That was great. We appreciate that.
Tools are incredibly expensive, by the way.
They are. Yeah. Yep. And they're the lifeblood of what we do, just like, it's our technology.
My Ryobi tools aren't that expensive.
This is a little different. Yeah.
Home Depot's finest.
Chief, what's the best part of the job?
Oh, people. Yeah, really, we have great people that work here, and they do great work. And people always like, what's the one thing I should know about the police department? I work with some of the finest people I've ever met. And that's what I said from day one. I was like, just great people that work here.
What would you say is the hardest part of the job?
Man, it depends. And that's a cop answer sometimes. like it depends. It depends on the day. It depends on the month. It depends on what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of times personnel decisions when you become an administrator are the toughest decision, right? Because again, we have to work through different things because we're a 340-person, $55 million operation, right? Actually, I think our budget's higher than that now, right? So that's just the headaches of being an administrator. I really miss being a cop. Mm-hmm. Like, being a cop was really fun. So that's, I think, the hardest part for me is I just love being a uniformed cop, and it's hard to be in an office sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really important question. What's the best crime or cop TV show / movie?
Yeah, great question. Southland.
Really?
Not watched very often.
Yeah.
But it was like 3 seasons of it.
Yeah.
Did a good job of catching some of the funny, mundane things of law enforcement.
Sure. Absolutely.
Rather than the Rookie where he's in a shootout every week. That doesn't happen. Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm a big fan of Reno 911.
yeah, well, that's pretty realistic. That's exactly what the job is like. Yeah.
Super Troopers.
Yeah. Yeah, Super Troopers too.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Have you seen End of Watch?
I did not watch it on purpose.
Oh, it's a pretty intense show.
Yep. And I had kind of I'm like, you know what? I don't need to watch that one.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of what it became.
Smart.
So, yeah.
So I had one off the record.
Mm-hmm.
Is this mustache officer approved?
Top notch.
Don't encourage him.
No, it's like I said. It's if we put a trooper hat on you right now, I think you'd be. It's top notch mustache. Yeah,
sure.
Officer approved. Let's put you on a motorcycle too.
Oh, that'd be the best.
Yeah.
Your mornings, coffee or energy drink?
Both.
Like double fisting or one after the other?
No. Start with an energy drink, chase it with coffee. Midday energy drink.
Yeah.
Midday coffee. I might sneak another energy drink.
That's impressive.
The Mayo Clinic says I can have 400 milligrams of caffeine a day. Look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
Doesn't one energy drink have it like?
No. I'm a white Monster now guy.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
160 milligrams of caffeine.
Good
I measure it out. I know when I've gone too far.
So this one I thought was an interesting question, but what's one thing criminals hope people don't know?
Yeah, I think lock your car. Like legitimately, we talk about the stolen vehicle phenomenon. 82%, over 80% of our vehicles that are stolen are unlocked with the keys let in it. It makes it so stinking easy. Oh yeah, and don't leave your guns in your car. This is not a Second Amendment issue. This is not every time you say guns, somebody tries to make it again political.
Yeah.
Like don't leave guns in unlocked cars because they inevitably will be used against our people or the public in a way that you can never bring back.
Right.
Sure. Yeah. So that's just this easy thing we can all do. Let's knock that off.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the easiest way for someone to make their home a target?
Maybe leave the front door open, garage door open.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Right.
Side door.
Side door. The thing is like we don't see home burglaries like we used to.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a high crime category. The ones that are done are typically unoccupied and are known to be unoccupied for a long time.
Right.
So different things like leaving your lights on, creating some sort of movement or visibility, even if you're gone, leave a light on, that's typically enough deterrent.
Yep.
So yeah.
Don't make the big Facebook post that, hey,
No,
we're leaving for 10
leaving
days.
for this, and I've left all my finest jewels on the kitchen table,
Easy stuff.
and my guns. Please come check it out. Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate you taking
Yeah,
the time. This was awesome to chat, and again, appreciate all you've done.
No,
Yeah.
appreciate it again. It's a fun opportunity for me to talk about some things in a different way, in a different setting that's not behind a podium, and I appreciate you guys reaching out.
Well, we appreciate what you do for the service for the community. For 20 years, you've been involved in this line of work, and especially for your team, too. We know that they
Yeah.
put themselves at risk, and we appreciate them stepping out for us.
Yeah, great people. Again, phenomenal officers that work here, phenomenal support staff. People forget about our animal control, our records personnel, our crime lab personnel. Takes a whole team, and I'm proud to be part of that team.
We appreciate you listening. Everything we do is a collaboration, and we appreciate you being here to share this with us.
Yeah, our goal is always the same, to build relationships, to build structures, and to tell the stories that we've experienced along the way.
Feel free to drop us a comment, share it with a friend, and like this podcast.
Or call me if you just want to talk about cows.
So until next time,
Keep building. No, get out of here.